Well, I will introduce myself in French and continue in English. I'm Mark Martner, Director General of the Mining Governance Project from the GIZ German Corporation, working with our partners in the four countries of the Mineral River Union, Guinea, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Cote d'Ivoire. And now our main objective is to support our partners to implement the principles of the African mining vision. In fact, these are a few objectives that are relevant to the small-scale mining sector. Alors, merci.
The objective of this panel is to go back and revisit some of the themes that we've discussed over the last 2 days, today and yesterday, and to consider where to go now, what to do with all the very interesting insights and very important issues that have been raised, and to consider what processes might look like and what processes have looked like that have been successful in integrating these concerns in designing policy processes. And to me, just very briefly, I would say that there are three points that really stood out to me that I heard. One is that the ASM sector is a sector that traverses many different other sectors, and very importantly, it's a regulation mining issue, but it's also a livelihood issue, which means that we have to put on many different lenses. That's an image that was used earlier today, which I found quite compelling. The second is that there's really scope for collaboration between different institutions, different countries, learning, sharing, because the challenges experienced by different countries and different regions within different countries seem to be very, very similar. So maybe some of the solutions can be collaborative. To get at those issues and to unpack them a little bit more, we've assembled a panel today, a very senior and quite a large panel. So I appreciate your cooperation in timing. The format will be such that we'll have two main speakers, and then we'll have a number of respondents from different sectors. It's a multi-stakeholder, multi-country panel like many of the previous panels have been. And I would like to start with Monsieur Mamadou Barry, who's a senior mining specialist at the World Bank, and who will give us some broad insight on good practices and scope for support in the sector. With that, thank you very much, Monsieur Barry.
I thank you very much, Doctor. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Mamadou Barry. I am at the World Bank in Washington working on the small-scale mining, and it's my pleasure to be here, and I want to thank the organizers, in particular our partner, the OECD, for the opportunity given to the bank to come and present at this important meeting. Dr. Martner asked me to give a more pedagogical approach, tapping from the experience of the bank in the various countries, and to talk about the development of the regional policy to develop the small-scale mining sector and artisanal mining. Well, in the area of politics or policies, over the 2 days that we spent here, we talked about marriage, coexistence between ASM and LSM. Now, I want to draw the same analogy of marriage to continue to talk about the development of ASM oriented policy. And if you look at the traditions in the sub-region, when you want to give your daughter for marriage to a foreigner, you have the same attachment to your daughter as it is for these minors. So this sentimental aspect shows that the man is very much attached to its land, so that we need to take into account the social and economic and cultural dimensions. So you will have to do a lot of due diligence to see if the foreigner who is asking the hand of your daughter deserves to be married to her. And so you will have to go through many consultations in the family and outside the family. So it is the same process for the development of policies, because instead of talking about coexistence in the marriage that will not work, we try to prepare things by putting the advantage on the side of the the bride and bridegrooms. So first of all, there will be a holistic consultation for a win-win situation for the two families to gain, and not only rely on the signing of a paper, which means the legalization of the marriage. And after the legalization of the marriage, you need to continue to provide counseling and support to financial, moral, and material support to both sides for the marriage to be successful. And the same applies to the development of policies for the ASM sector. So we need to have an approach that will help the government to come out with a number of guidelines that could guide the government in its orientation in supporting the ASM operators. And this requires a long process, and the World Bank is involved in that process for years. And I remember that since 1995, we organized a first conference on ASM to come up to outline the approach in favor of ASM operators. In all technical assistance programs, we included tens of thousands of dollars to assist the ASM sector. The first was legalization, and we saw that legalization was a necessary condition, but which proved not to be sufficient enough. So we had to come up with a mining code and take into account or capture ASM in that code. And we did it in Ghana since 1985, 86. And since then, many countries joined the bandwagon, but it was not a definite solution to the problem. So we saw that beyond legalization, there is a need for institutional support, financial support, as well as technical support to enable the mining sector to become more formal and become an SMI and operate like a normal SMIs. It's a long process, and this requires a more adapted policy to achieve that. It's a process, and the process is a preparation. In the marriage, you need to prepare very well. You need to have the political will to operate necessary changes, and already there are some habits that are deeply anchored in the ASM sector. It's not in the fortnight that you will change all this. So, and these small ASM operators must want to tell the government what they'll be doing, and they are afraid of doing it. And so they try to work in the informal manner. So you need to take a policy decision to change a number of things, and a number of countries have done that. Have done it. We assisted Sierra Leone attending here to develop its artisanal mining sector. We also went to Burkina Faso, where we negotiated and set aside some funds to support that sector. In Mali, we are working. In Cote d'Ivoire, we are discussing. In Nigeria, we're still on the discussion table for some hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to support mining, artisanal mining. Togo, Cameroon, we are there to support the government in their formulation of their policies. Most of those governments expressed the interest to develop the ASM sector as a way to solve poverty problem and create job at local level. And the second is the diagnosis phase. We need to make an inventory of the situation and see what worked and what didn't work. Is there any policy that enables the small-scale miners to change their attitude, or there are some policies that drive those actors to embark on the wrong direction? So this is a phase for the development of policies, And this is where we intervene with the support, the technical support with the bank and national and international consultants to help the government to try to introduce in their respective legislations the good or the best international practices from Asia, America, and Latin America. So we called it this tank of expertise and knowledge and best practices. We introduce it or present it to the country for them to adopt it and see how they can improve on all of these things. So now the assistance should not be only technical, but it should be, consultation should not be technical but national. And we have the evaluation phase. What lacked in most of those processes is consultation. We need consultation because each country is different. You know, artisanal sector in the area of mining is different from one country to the other. You can, in the same country, you can move from one region to the other and see differences. So you need to learn from the good international best practices and be able to adjust them to your context. So the issue is, first of all, institutional in the same country with the various institutions, and it's technical because we need to gather a ministerial team and make it a steering committee that will come with technical solutions. It's not sufficient. The consultation should be very important. It should be a citizen consultation because it will incorporate all these cultural, socioeconomic phenomena that make things in such a way that all solutions could be adapted to the conditions in the country. Now, I would like to expatiate a bit on the development of the policy that starts, first of all, by a definition of the mandate. Any policy should fit in a major framework like reduction of poverty or a contribution, for instance, in the case of Cote d'Ivoire, to an emerging Cote d'Ivoire in the next 10 to 15 years, or in the macroeconomic framework of the countries. There should be a mission that artisanal mining should be a tool that will contribute to the development of the country. And once this is defined, we need to make a state of a situation to determine clearly the opportunity and the risk and the advantages and also the possible loss to rectify and see if a national policy is prepared. And now you need to come up with a vision to present the future in the next 10 to 15 years in such a way that the sector or the artisanal mining will be the next 10 to 15 years. And when it's defined, then you need to identify the means that will lead you to there, which means the strategic axis that will help the government to achieve the goals and transform the artisanal mining to a formal sector that will effectively contribute to the national economy. Once the strategy is defined, we need action plans and programs that should be defined, taking into account the cost-effectiveness that will also lead the government to define clear activities that will definitely or eventually lead to the development of that sector. And finally, we will need a result framework to monitor all this because any policy is, first of all, human. Mining, artisanal mining is a human business, so things change depending on the development of the market or the priorities of the urgent policies. So the policies need to be adjusted and evaluated and monitored on a regular basis. So there is a number of actions that at regional level could be undertaken. I'm happy to see that one of the conclusions, which is the most important, among the most important in that regional is that, in that meeting, is that the regional approach is important. The national approaches are welcome in the process, but these approaches should be harmonized. If not, we'll be solving a problem in the country while creating another one in the other countries. So we need to harmonize the approaches, and it's the message that we all understood, and we in the World Bank will get across the message that you just sent to us about moving from a country-specific approach to a regional approach. And there's also a fact that policies sometimes are difficult to implement successfully. Let me give you an example. I will take the example of DRC, which is strongly represented here. About 10 to 15 years, we were approached by a mining society company that had an agreement with the government then to develop a copper mining site. And the agreement was signed at the moment when Kabila was marching on Kinshasa. So a number of companies then signed an agreement before knowing if the government would change or not. So the World Bank was in the face of the situation that was already sealed. And it was during a period where the policies were not clear, but there was an interest to support the peace process in that country by supporting this kind of economic initiative. So an economic, a copper mining site that will be supported by a big institution will be good for visibility. But what we had to do was to ensure that the condition of a national policy was in place, were in place. And we needed to ensure that the economic returns from that agreement were more than the economic return on previous ones. We needed to ensure that the government will comply with the human rights principles and transparency standards of EITI. At that time, there was nothing like EITI to ensure that this company needed to contribute to the standard for the development of communities and society. So they had to give 10% of their benefit to the communities. With that, we were able to support the society, the company. Later, there was an accident that some of you might know in the name of Kilwa, the village of Kilwa. But because of all the safeguard measures, the company was able to continue its project, and they reviewed the project, and we saw that all the policies were in place. Very quickly, there is another country, Papua New Guinea. I was there about a month ago. It's a country that experienced a terrible history because of the big copper mining site, and it was the biggest in the world then. And that mining site was exploited by Rio Tinto, and the population was not happy. The landowner found that there were disadvantages, so they opened up a war, an armed war, a kind of civil war that resulted in 20,000 dead, casualties. Why? Because the population thought that they were not associated with the government policies, and it became a drama. There was a peace agreement that was signed finally in 1998, and thanks to that agreement, peace came back, and now we are helping the country to develop a mining policy that can avoid this type of atrocities that we saw. So it is an inclusive policy. We conducted a number of consultations with all the parties because it's a country of 800 different languages, and half of the languages are spoken, which are spoken in this country. They're always fighting against themselves, the provincial government against the national government. But we ended up with a consensus that led to a mining code that responds to the consensus of everybody. So in conclusion, the consultations are very important to develop the policies. And by way of conclusion, I would say that artisanal mining is a multidimensional phenomenon, and we need a multidimensional institutional anchorage. It's good that you're talking about regional approach, because the national approach is not sufficient. And the institutions and partners and all the relevant parties need to pool their efforts, and it is to that framework that I'm calling on all the partners here in attendance. We are starting with OECD, a mutual collaboration approach with the World Bank to create a global platform for the development and support to ASM sector will organize a meeting in Paris around the 5th May to discuss on the modality of that platform. I'm stopping here, and I thank you for your kind attention.
Merci de votre intervention.
Well, I thank you very much for your intervention. I want to ask you a question on the regional approach, which I think is very crucial. Is there any good practices or best practices or examples from other countries or regions where things were successful that we can apply? Sorry, I'm not hearing the speaker. I'm not hearing the speaker. Off your microphone, sir. Yes. There is a close collaboration between the countries in the sub-region, and it was successful in the area of sharing of experience and pooling of effort. But there's always this national sovereignty component that makes it in such a way that the country always prefer to mobilize the fund internally to support their own policies. This is what we are supporting at the bank. We want to move from a national approach to a regional approach, and this is what we propose, that regional platform and later a continental platform and international platform to pool efforts and experience and support that sector of small-scale mining and artisanal mining. So it's difficult to find experiences of successful regional collaborations. But we find that what was done really in Eastern Africa and in Central Africa for conflict-related minerals are examples that we can use to forge ahead.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
We will switch to English now. We have Honorable Stephen Dorbor, who will be our next presenter. Honorable Dorbor is the Deputy Minister for Planning and Human Resource at the Ministry of Lands and Mines in Liberia, and he will explain to us what his approach or his ministry's approach was in developing an artisanal mining roadmap. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, usually it's a difficult thing on the last day after lunch. There are a lot of challenges, so I will try to keep a little bit awake and don't talk too long. Okay, we've been hearing about formalization, regional approach, and that's exactly what our formula has been. When we realize that we have challenges in the sector. So the question is, why did we decide to come up with a roadmap, first of all, to tackle this issue? What's the definition when we say a roadmap? Who are the stakeholders in the sector we try to identify? What approach to take? What are the policy areas to look at when you're talking about artisanal mining? What are other revelations that we discovered through the process? And then we'll give you the journey we went through in a snapshot. And then the next steps we hope to undertake. And then we can conclude. When we realized that there were a lot of challenges in the ASM, what did we do? We first look at our history. All the gold and diamond mining in Liberia up to at least 2 years ago came predominantly from artisanal mining, artisanal and small scale. And then we also reflected, we found out that during that time, there were protracted illicit activities going on, not only in the mining of the minerals and illicit trading, but there's also drug abuse, money laundering, smuggling, child labor. I mean, all the negative you can think of. So the question is, in this millennium, do we want to live with these things on our minds? And the answer is no. And then we also examine that artisanal mining on our law is restricted to indigenous Liberians. Is that the case? It's big no. And we all can attest to that. So, what's the roadmap then? We ask ourselves, what roadmap can we come up with? We are talking about roadmap that will capacitate the Ministry of Lands, Mines and Energy as an institution and also provide some financial capability to be able to regulate the sector. We're talking about roadmap that will enhance mineral traceability and sector monitoring. A roadmap that enhances environmental and social performance of the sector, but most crucially, a roadmap that will provide positive incentive for all the stakeholders. Stakeholders being the miners, the host communities in which the minerals are mined, and the government, of course. So once we identify those, we say, okay, those are the stakeholders. What do? We invited the stakeholders identified into a national consultative meeting. And thankfully, the UNDP sponsored that workshop. And then we had the government, but we had community members from the mining areas across the country. We had the artisanal miners themselves. And we invited our donor community as well to sit and go into the details of this issue, as we are doing here today. Everybody has got some experience. So, once we agreed to that, it was easy. There are two ways to come up with policy. You can sit home as a government, sit at the top, and draft a decree and say, this is it. You got to go by it. Fine. But without work, experience tells us, no, it's not the way. So we actually went down to the stakeholders and say, hey, we think we have an issue here. What do you think? And the miners, the community members told us, yes, indeed, there's an issue with the sector. The next question was, are you benefiting from the sector? No, actually, we are not, they told us. So what can we do? And then the consultation started from there. And so we had, again, through the support of GIZ, we had an international consultant. We started with fee level pre-assessment, just to have a fee of what's happening there. And then we had a fee level consultation going from one region to the other. And then we came up with a formal. Once we got all the feedback, we sat down into a week policy formalization session. Because then we had sufficient information, we had sufficient input. And then we came up with the roadmap. So our approach was, we went with an open hand, as you can see demonstrated out there. And we went with the principle of bidding or partnership and not policing. Because the moment you portray yourself as the police, and somebody feel that they are being hunted, and you never get anything out of them. So partnership was the key. After we collected all the information, what did we do? We analyzed it, and then came up with 8 policy thematic areas that I will just briefly go through. Firstly, we realized that the ministry was too far removed from the mines, so there's a need for decentralization of our activities to get closer to the mines. Accessibility of licenses. All licenses are issued in a capital city. That's a challenge. So we realized that in order to get people to comply, we have to develop a mechanism to issue licenses at regional levels. And then we also realized that, yes, government is asking artisanal miners to get formalized, but what help can we give them? Apparently, the government has got capacity in terms of technical knowledge. So we propose that we do some spatial mapping. Let's know where they've been mining in the past. Let's know where they are mining now. Get those spatial information. Get it on our geology map. And then project where could be the next potential alluvial mines. Once we do that, then we can now go and define and actually deride them, that these are the potential areas for you to go. And then we can survey it. That way, they see that we are of help to them, and then in response, they will help to defend whatever regulations we come up with. And then tracing and reporting on minerals, that can be achieved if we have all the stakeholders working together. We thought, again, the one challenge is you got artisanal miners moving overnight from place to place. So how do you work with these people as partners? So we suggested there's a need to have you miners organized into umbrella groupings, cooperatives. And that's what we are working on right now. Environmental management practices, you can only achieve that if you have miners under umbrella groupings. Individual miners are too poor or too inadequately prepared to hold them liable for environmental issues. Health and safety, again, is being abused because people are more on the economic side rather than environmental security. And social responsibility is one thing the average miner thinks belongs to the companies. It doesn't belong to them. Even though they win money in these communities, they think social responsibility is for the big guys. It's not for them. So all of these issues, we agree that is something all of us need to do something about. And during that survey, we also, as we predated, found out that there was a high level of drug abuse on the mines. People are using these mines to just do everything that you can imagine in terms of drug abuse, money laundering. People are walking because they have no control. People come with grapes of money, go into the mines and buy and walk away. Nobody knows the source of that funding. At the industrial level, we got screening method, but at that level it's difficult unless we have it formalized. There's a threat. Child labor is something our regulation is against. Our labor law is strongly against child labor. Why do you control it if you don't have the sector formalized? Gender inequality. I think I heard someone saying parts of these mines, women can't go there or girls can't go here because of some other things, So all of those things were identified. Of course, poor environmental management. I don't need to show you any picture of that. You saw a lot of them, so I thought not to bother with that. Health and safety, general insecurity. And I underscore that because now you have mines around. You don't even know who all are the players there. People come from different countries. In Liberia, we have people as far as Zimbabwe on the mines. I mean, let's not talk about West Africa, even also West Africa. People are on the mine. And these are potential strong guys. Youthful population. Dissident group could easily take advantage of that. Those people wanting money to use them for other subversive activities. So reason why we really need to pay attention to this. So what we finally look at is yes, the government is losing revenue, but the gravity of the issue is beyond revenue. It's got serious social and environmental implications that we need to take very seriously. And the mines are not improving anyway. Most of the mining areas, and that tend to be corrected, across West Africa have been extensively in Sierra Leone, parts of Guinea, and even Cote d'Ivoire. I don't see the level of development that those areas needed to have compared to the resources that come from there. So you just join me quickly. How did we go about it? Quickly, because of time, we have an informal sector, and we want to transform that into a formal sector. So we share the concept with stakeholders. That was the support of the UNDP. And then we carry on the awareness, data collection, stakeholder consultations. We completed that. Another was policy making, drafting, regulatory roadmap, and sectoral validation, launching. That was completed with the support of GIZ. And then we decided this is a way to come in with a workable AM policy formulation. The resources to pilot this for 3 years, about $2.7 million. Implementation are the next steps that we actually opting to go through. And we are counting on stakeholders, the government, donor partners to support that. And as we go, we continue to develop renewed milestones and goals to determine the AM sector level of formalization in Liberia. And let me just clarify something. You hear me talking AM and not ASM. In Liberia, we try to have 3 layers of licenses. We got a Class C, that's purely artisanal mining for our locals. We got a Class B, that is semi-industry mining, that's open to indigenous Liberians and foreigners, but that goes with some environmental responsibility. And then we got a Class A, that is a regular industrial mine. And so we try to limit this to Class C, which is the artisanal mining. And once we have grip on that, the rest are easier to roll over. And so I just wanted to make that clarity. So these are our next steps. Dissemination of roadmap to stakeholders, especially in the pilot area. We've gone through that last December. We are now in the process of actually piloting a roadmap in selected areas by forming cooperatives. We are at the same time looking at those quick wins, developing the capacity of our people. We are mobilizing funding, and we are piloting the roadmap, as I said. And all of this, lessons learned from this process, will adequately prepare us to formulate an artisanal mining policy that we think will be workable, that can be defended by all the stakeholders, because in this process, the stakeholders, the miners, the community, the host communities have all accepted it and taken ownership. So it will be very easy, in our opinion, to defend and protect such a policy. And so, just to conclude, we say these few things. Formalization is the key support to sustainable ASM sector legal framework. No matter how good the legal framework is, if we don't formalize this sector, it's going to be difficult to implement anything. And then, of course, there's that regional approach aspect. Our thought is that we try as much as possible to put our individual house in order, and it will be easier to come up with regional approach. And then in the process, we also want to admonish all of us here is that the key is partnership rather than policing. Policing, once you portray yourself as a police, you're not going to get the cooperation. If you don't get the cooperation, I was privileged to be in one cabinet meeting representing my minister, and the issue came up, and I told our president and the cabinet ministers that with the sector being informal, even if we deploy the entire police and army of this country, they are not able to put it under control. So it's not about force, it's about persuasion. We need to work with these people at a very local level. And this dialogue, participatory dialogue, are very important because during those consultative meetings, we didn't only work with manners, we work with the CSO, we work with the superintendents, which you call the prefect here. Every stakeholder was part of that dialogue from the beginning, and so we think that's the way to go, partnership. Participatory approach in regulation participatory approach in regulation formulation is the only guarantee that such regulation will be upheld. Finally, government's role in all of these things should not just be monitoring or regulating. We should be there to assist. Once the stakeholders see that we care for them, they will care for us, and they will help for us to regulate the sector. So I say thank you. We have to all adopt what I call innovative thinking as we go through the formalization and legalization of the ASM sector. Let me say thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dober. In the interest of time, I'll limit myself to one question before we move to the response. You've outlined the importance of the participatory approach and the value you see in it. I wonder whether the private sector was also involved in the participation and whether you were dealing with some of these issues of large-scale, small-scale mining interaction that we've discussed yesterday.
Thank you, Mark. What we did, our strategy is actually, I should have included as a part of the next step. Once we have our hotspot in order with the artisanal miners, the next stage is to now collaborate. Because as it is, as long as we remain informal, as long as there are no clear definition of artisanal miners, as long as there is no definite idea about who are these miners, it's difficult to initiate a talk with another higher level. So there will be disadvantage if they go as individual miners. So our intent is get them organized, empower them, then they can be able to adequately engage with the upper level. So it's just part of the next step. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to move on to the respondents. We have to my right Monsieur Bodiel Ndiaye, who is the chairman of the Groupement Professionnel des Minières, and also the country manager of Randgold Resources. And I would invite you to reflect a little bit of the role of the private sector in this policy-making process.
Thank you very much. Je vais le dire en français. Je voudrais donc, au nom du GPMC,
on behalf of the GPMC that I'm representing here, which is the only employer associate organization of the sector in Côte d'Ivoire, aside the hydrocarbon sector. And this sector represents all of the mining companies in operation, the companies who are getting ready to make the exploitation. They are in the investment phase. Most of the exploration company as well as the service delivery company have more than 50 members in that sector, which are represented here as the private sector. And I would like to say that over 8 years of existence, we have demonstrated that we have a synergy of action. The federation, the unification of the mine and means can enable us to have the same solution or achieve the solution expected because we have come together. And in this regard, that our industry can help do that job. Since I'll be talking about what we are doing in Côte d'Ivoire, Côte d'Ivoire is in a new sector compared to countries like Ghana, Mali, and South Africa. The mining industry started in Côte d'Ivoire in its current development phase a few years ago. There are mining fields such as ET that have been working since 20 years, but the current mining sector as being developed is recent. That due to the fact that the policy of Côte d'Ivoire has enabled such a situation, because it's part of the objective of the country to say that we want the mining sector to be the second backbone of the economy of the country after the agriculture. So in this regard, Côte d'Ivoire has makes means available for it to happen with the new mining code, some regulation that have been adopted. As private sector, we want to hail this workshop, commend this workshop, welcome this workshop, because we have cross-fertilized on the ASM, sharing the experiences, learning from one another, analyzing the pathway and strategy for the development of the ASM. What we have captured from this 3 days workshop, it came out clearly. It has come out clearly that our state prefers the large-scale mining development, because it generates more money and it's easy to control the traceability, and we are complying with some international standard, and the world is looking at us, and at each country level it's easier to collaborate with the mining industry with respect to the positive impacts. But from what we have said here, it's impossible to sideline the ASM. I'm not saying so. We cannot ignore or sideline the ASM. That today it's important to seize that opportunity and see how we drive this informal, illegal sector to the economy of the country and have it contribute to the economic development of the different countries. This is the challenge which is bringing us together here through this workshop, through the outcome that we're looking for. We listened to several presentations with each country presenting, sharing its experiences. Each country has its solution which works at the domestic level, but with the different experiences, solution that we have been able to share, let us come up with a synthesis, a summary, and identify the right track for the integration to be done. We might confess that it's not easy. The question was raised here that if the coexistence can be done smoothly between the informal sector and the industrial sector, it has been said that it can be done, but this should go through some conditions, some requirement. And figures have been given yesterday, but those figures are not accurate. This sector, as it's informal, we don't have actual statistics that allows us to capture the world production. But it seems that in this country, the ASM produce 5 tons of gold per year. This is half of the mining industry production in Côte d'Ivoire. When you take 1/3, if this is 1/4 the production, imagine what it represents in terms of tax lost by the country on a yearly basis. Each year, if we could have a traceability. This is money. To something like 30 billion CFA, which is lost by the country. So how do we make sure that all together we do it? These figures are not released, they are not published. We are talking about tonnage in terms of production. If those figures can be translated in monetary value, it will drive the different country to be more quick to adopt decision regarding the ASM. Instead of saying that it's 1 ton, 2 ton, 100 ton, this 100 ton should be multiplied by its monetary value, should be multiplied by its tax income, tax loss. And country had to take decision in order to address the issue and get the sector formalized. So in the private sector's role is to make a contribution, to come up with avenues and drive this sector to be more organized, more professional, and more responsible in the practice. I would like to share some thoughts made on that activity. Today, we all recognize that ASM is competing with the industrial sector, the LSM. This ranges from the cultural factors, and you will see that in some region where you have the blacksmiths which turn into miners, so this sector was not considered because it was deemed marginal. But with the increase of the gold tariff that have moved from 250 to 1,300, this sector appear as a palliative to the other economic sectors because people are living in agriculture, people in the villages, and preferential crop is here to bear testimony. Most of the villagers will leave their land, give it to the miners, the excavators, because this is the money they can make on a daily basis, and the income is high compared to the income from agriculture. So there is a social phenomenon in connection with the poverty related to the development of the large city, so that so many people can't find a place in the current economic fabric, and people prefer to go to a sector viewed as easy, which is in reality very difficult when you go to the ground. So when we said to regulate the sector, we should have a synergy of action. Nobody in isolation can handle the situation. The private sector with its solution cannot do it. We had solution proposed by the private sector, implemented in some areas, but it's not 100% proven efficient. Some solution has come from some government, but in terms of implementation, many challenges were found on the ground. So it's about collecting, picking up all those solutions and see how we implement. Now one question is about fair coexisting of ASM miners on LSM license by creating corridors for those miners. How can we? Yes, we can achieve it. Today, the mining license subject to some requirement, the environmental code, rehabilitation, restoration fund, and so on. If you don't comply, if part of your site is not compliant with all these requirements, you, the owner of the license, or are you the one to blame, or do we pass a specific law for this minor? These are aspects we need to discover, to discuss extensively. Today, the solution is the regional solutions because this situation is common to most of the country. Today, it's said by our law that ASM minor dedicated to the nationals must be an Ivorian if you want to engage in ASM. But we have foreigners, non-national, who are working it. So those who are working in the ASM non-national, that comes from the neighboring countries. So this problem should be tackled at the regional level. So together with all the submissions being made here, as a most importantly, this meeting should not be a meeting, a one-off meeting, a meeting which is held today or these 3 days, then after no other meeting is organized. So we should organize similar meetings and draw the lesson, draw the conclusion, and see how we better achieve our goals. With the contribution, the input, insightful input from the different stakeholders, from the different institutional, and the international community, including the World Bank, the African Development, the banks, and so on, should all come together and start reflecting on the issue. So all the stakeholders, before leaving here, should set a date for the next meeting. But before that meeting, what are the steps, what are the actions we roll out in order to achieve the goal? And do we identify a specific periodic time where we should convene again? Each country, a country that have implemented something should be able to share it with the others, so that when we meet in 1 year time in a similar meeting, that we should be able to share our best practices, show the ups and downs. So from this workshop, let us decide to go on mission, that each country put in place a strategy, and that strategy be shared at the regional level so that we can take a decision and adopt harmonious rules. Last time you raise a question at the country level, they will tell you that we're aware of the problem, but we don't have the resources. You, as mining sector, private sector, can you provide the resources and really enforce the measures? Today, we can together brainstorm on how to raise resources. Resources are available, they're available, but let's go and collect them. Let us go toward, get closer to those institutions and seek their financial contribution. And so we can make the sector an integrated sector which is interrelated, integrated to the economy of country, to get out of illegality, that we have a fair and smooth coexistence in the country and in the different sub-regions. I'd like to thank you. This is according to the multi-stakeholders approaches. I'm going to yield to the civil society, and he's the director for the ITA for Côte d'Ivoire. Thank you for being here. Can you tell us a few words on the role of civil society? Thank you, Dr. Mra, for giving me the floor. I would like to thank all the organizers for inviting the national IT in this meeting. at the level of the initiative for the extractive industry, we want to, we're putting in place a platform between the different actors to reflect on the issue of the extractive industry, and an important role has been given to the civil society. For civil society to contribute to the issue of governance, to make sure that have more accountability on the issue of traceability regarding the channel of the value chains. So to do so, a protocol was put in place in the IT standards to handle the governing issue, which is inviting the civil society and freedom of expression to the civil society, to make sure that the civil society provide its inputs to the discussion, to the debate, that the civil society make sure that information available at level IT, at the initiative, result in a reform that will lead to the good governance. The civil society is participating in an active manner, actively, and we have been an important actors for in the developing different reports and in disseminating the data. The civil society also is playing a role in disseminating the information. Firstly, streamlining the information in collaboration of the National Council of EITI, and several cartoons were produced by the civil society, allowing the population to have access to this information, and correlating it with the topic of the day, the topic of this workshop, the ASM. I can say that the EITI has identified in the different report that the ASM was not sufficiently documented, and it was several people, both at national and international level, was challenged on, and a discussion was held at the national initiative. And today, here, only a regional approach or international approach is appropriate, as the issue is beyond the village, beyond the country. And a study has been proposed as part of the action plan of the ITM to go to the other country and see how we can use this framework of ITA to address the issue of ASM. Let me share with you a story. The role of civil society is important in many regards. But in 2008, 2009, there was a problem in one localities of this country. The issue lasted several days, and it has blocked the activity of a mining site. The current chairperson of EITS asked the director of the mine to get closer to the civil society in order to collect the solution of the civil society. So, at the beginning, he was reluctant, that director was reluctant to get closer to the civil society because he couldn't understand why he should go and discuss with the civil society for it to go and solve a problem in one localities. And finally, he was convinced. Then he contacted the leaders of the civil society who asked him questions and asked for some documentation. Then the civil society could understand. Civil society could understand. Organization could understand the problem. And then the civil society decided to, let's say, to visit the mine So all what we are saying here, even if we identify the different actors, even if we put in place that framework, if we don't build trust, it will be difficult to progress in the different themes we are dealing with. So we, civil society, visited the mine, discussing with all stakeholders, the local population, and brought the population to understand that there were some legal regulatory framework to be taken out on. Finally, the population decided to remove or lift all the obstacle allowing that mining site to continue being exploited. So we cannot ignore the role of civil society in the process we are putting in place, because it's an important stakeholder that can be used for disseminating the information, and that can play an important role in putting in place all the actions.
Merci beaucoup aussi. Je pense
Thank you. I think that let us continue to have time for a discussion. This question of regional level, regional dimension is key, because we have two regional partners here, starting with Mr. Cisse, the representative of the authority of Liptako Gurma, to share with us what he has been doing in his area. Thank you for allowing me to attend this meeting. My name is Cisse Jaji, in charge of the Department for Infrastructure and Mining at the Integrated Authority of the region of Litapo Guruma. But last month, the head of state convened in Niamey to revise the treaty creating the authority. We have an intervention operation area which is straddling three countries, Burkina, Mali, and Niger. But our intervention area is extending to the territory of the three countries. So it will be henceforth called Authority for Integrated Development of these states of Liptako Gurma instead of the region of Liptako Gurma. I would like to seize the opportunity to give you this information. In addition to our development mandate, we have a security mandate by the creation of a multinational security force, because we all know that the region is facing the serious security challenges. So the meeting on the ASM, our authority is able to convene or to bring together the managers of the mining services to discuss the hot issues, the burning issue. So we even had a meeting last month. The topic was the ASM, and during that meeting, we have decided to develop a program for sustainable development of ASM with two components. And those components are the assistance supervision project and the development of the ASM in the member state. And one component is the restoration of land degradation. And each state individually cannot come up with the appropriate solution to handle the issue. So a regional approach will be viewed as the best recipe to curb the problem. So the environmental impact problem is always topical in relation to the ASM activity. We are now conducting a study for that project in order to come up with a solution for the Free State. Côte d'Ivoire is not safe. It's not immune from the problem. So the problem is general, common to all the countries. On this basis, the regional approach, our regional approach, take us to some institution so that we can work together. On the third quarters of the year, we'll organize a workshop to promote the OECD due diligence guidance. So, on due course, I will inform the participant as we'll have a database from this meeting. Thank you. Giving the floor to Madame Baye from the Ministry of Mine and Industry of Senegal to tell us a few words on the Senegalese experience. Thank you, Mr. Mark. I would like to thank the organizers for giving us the opportunity to be here even at the last minute to share with you the experience of Senegal. So this is the platform to share with you the progress, the opportunity that we did in terms of sustainable development of ASM in Senegal. Senegal seems small in terms of ASM, is lagging behind because the ASM is practiced on 1/4 of the country. It's a country which have a large density, huge concentration of ASM miners or workers. So we are seconding the different presentation made since yesterday. In terms of strategy, Senegal in 2008 benefited from funding from the European Union as part of a comprehensive project for support to the private sector. One of the components was an ASM support program. Unfortunately, they had several achievements in terms of formalization, compliance with environmental health, workplace safety standards. Due to the duration of the project, when the project ended, it has not been sustained by the government. These are some weaknesses that can be identified with respect to the support that development partners are giving to the developing country. The means, how do we sustain the achievement in this country, in the different countries, so that in 2012, due to the economic context, where we have a surge of the price tariff, people start rushing for the site. And we convened a meeting with all state agencies being organized, and we've come up with an action plan. And the action plan cataloged the different action from different departments. And we have been mandated to put in place a regulation which is tailored to the sector so that So we passed a set of regulation which prove successful, but that can still be refined and improved. Firstly, we have adopted an order to organizing the sector, and several countries did the same thing. So ASM is the matter of national. These are the requirements to be an ASM operator. We have distributed the ASM card. That was one requirement if you want to engage in that activity. One progress, one breakthrough is that we managed to demarcate the areas dedicated to the ASM activity. Since 2014, 21 corridor of ASM activity have been demarcated. In those corridors, we've poured the ASM miners, even though some illegal, let's say, corridor were also in existence. The main achievement is that we managed to negotiate with the company in the exploration phase in order to identify some corridors. After this step, we need to control the commercialization secret channel. As per the studies, all the gold produced, mined in Senegal, are not commercialized. Some will cross the borders, go to Mali. The idea was to put in place purchase and marketing counter or center for the gold. Unfortunately, those centers are not operational so far. In terms of way forward, we'll try. Of course, we have some answers. The cultural context, as when we take this part of Senegal, people who come and buy gold share the same culture as our brothers. These are Mandingo people. So they can easily deal with the people as they have the same culture. So this can be one explanation, the cultural factor, but of course there are some others that need consideration. After those provisions or those steps, we put in place in the region of Kédougou, a regional committee for monitoring ASM management around the governor of the region and bringing together all the local entities, the head of department in charge of environment, water and forestry and mining, all the stakeholders around. Around the governor. So a series of actions were taken at the government level to handle this, manage the sector. It's a sector on which the plan for an emerging Senegal is relying on. This project for the management and supervision of ASM is a flagship project. The way forward is to assess this action plan, revisit it, amend it, change the approach. As with the ARM project, which were implemented in the area, some proved successful in terms of formalization of some grouping of ASM operators. We received declaration of production from those groups. To have organized activity, we need regional collaboration. We need the synergy of the different regional country. And YMU has worked on the topic. We convened several times, and we cannot go from the vacuum from scratch. There are recommendations need to be implemented. We have several proposals. The most important thing is to match rhetoric with substantial practical action, walk the talk, all the solutions that are available in our region is to work, is to be active and see which type of partnership we can have with international organizations.
Well, I thank you very much. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Koulibaly, Director General of the Mines. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. After the Supreme Authority, as far as I'm concerned, I mean the Honourable Minister, who thanked everybody here, I would like to follow my predecessors to commend this very important workshop in Cote d'Ivoire. I think that a lot has been said, or let's say all has been said. I will not come back on what has been said already, because each country had time to express their problems. I heard the World Bank talk, I heard Mr. Boudiel talk, and as it is said in our country, if something can be shortened, don't make it long. Now, as far as we're concerned, we provided a good contribution, which is the PRO, which is the National ASM Plan, which, even though presents some weaknesses, is at least a laudable achievement in the country. We agreed at the end of the day to say that the ASM is very important and is potentially an activity that can bring a lot to our countries. But to be able to achieve that, we need to take up many challenges, and everybody agreed on it. We have environmental challenges. We have challenges in the area of formalization and coaching and structuring of the sector. And we all agreed eventually to say that, in fact, it's the topic of our panel, was to reflect and give our position on the way forward for this baby that we are delivering at birth today, because like we have just delivered a baby today, which is the workshop. Which is the feature? What is the feature that we're giving to this baby? I want to join my brother Boudiel, who in a sentence said it all. Today, all the good best practices that have been presented so far, all the solutions that were presented from other countries, be put in the same basket, so that we put in place a committee with focal points from various countries that will start to brainstorm on all this, and the reflection at the end of the day will be submitted to the tables of our governmental decision makers, because we are not to decide. We have to collect all these proposals and present them to the states. And I think that the process now will be triggered, and we will be all together working towards achieving it. Now, to close, I would like to remind everybody that if we agree that the solution to make ASM a real economic driving force, then regional approach among our sub-region countries will be possible. But still, we have a number of challenges because coordination is one of them. It's not about putting focal point the country and call the experts, put them together to come up with a miraculous solution. Each country has its peculiarities, and we need to take all this into account. So there's a major challenge as to just the solution to the national context that we need to adopt for each country. And there is also a monitoring and evaluation challenge, and also a financial challenge. I would like to insist on it because in all what we want to do, the financial aspect is also very important. This is what I can say on the topic of our panel, which was to see what we would do with the newborn baby today. Thank you.
Monsieur le Directeur Général, je vous remercie.
Thank you, Mr. Director General. Since I'm German, saying that we are left with 27 minutes for a few questions. You have the floor. Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon. I'm from Endeavor Mining Company. I would like to commend the panel because I missed a part of it that was called by my Director General on the ASM operators who are working on our mining site. They were supposed to leave today, but for the past 14 months we have been trying to negotiate with them. So I would like to ask the Director General, Mr. Koulibaly, given the fact that we've been working together and we want to continue to work together, how are we going to manage with the baby? It's a very stubborn baby. We find it hard to manage it. We need your help and instructions from the office because there is a serious frustration on our part, and I know that it's not just Endeavor, it's Randgold, it's Jocles, and other major industrial miners. Thank you. I thank you. I'm Bafa Sangari, Technical Advisor to the Ministry of Mining sector in Mali. I would like to chip in a contribution and ask a question. The first is to Mr. Cissé Tabakurma. The contribution is that Mr. Cissé forgot something that's been very long that Fako Gourma Authority has been reflecting on the coaching of the artisanal operators, artisanal miners, and so there has been an outline of legislation for ASM operation, and that structure conducted it in 1998. Now the question is to know something, because there was a project to create a school workshop for ASM activities, and the TORs were prepared. The two concerns, or I should say that the two projects which Mr. Cissé talked about, I didn't really hear anything about this project. Is it that they have left the project out, or they are still working on it?
Thank you. I am Godwin Ama with the Ghana National Association of Small-Scale Miners. I want to ask the Liberian Deputy Minister that what are the steps that they've put in place to avoid future conflicts between small-scale miners and large-scale mining companies? Because most often what you see is the small-scale miners will be mining in different areas, and before you see the area have been given to large-scale companies to mine. And that is the major conflict areas that we see between small-scale miners and large-scale companies. What steps have they put in place? Number two, to the Senegalese and the lady from Senegal. I heard her saying that they mine the ASM miners mine, but they don't sell in the country. They end up selling outside. Have they investigated the root cause of that? Why are they selling outside? I just want to know. Thank you.
Well, Endeavor, you said that we're partners, right? So it's the question that we'll manage among ourselves. Well, to be more serious, of course, it's not the first time. We said it yesterday when we presented the program, and even I said that we recognize that our system have some weaknesses. One of them that you just mentioned. What we realize is that it is an alarming situation, not only with you. Even Mr. Boudiel, who is here, is facing the same situation, the same problem. But when it happens like that, we have our procedures that we put in place. I cannot be here and solve this problem, you understand? We will try and find a way to solve it. We are very serious about that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, talking about large scale, small scale. If you remember in my presentation, I told you we have 3 scales of mining licenses. A, B, C. The C is the artisanal mining. And the artisanal mining by law is restricted to secondary material. And the licenses given is only for 1 year. And the obvious reason for that is that when it's proven that a large-scale mining operation has to go on over there, then we have a mechanism where the small scale, the Class C, can easily be relocated, of course, with some financial relocation fees given, provided that Class C miner has got a legitimate license. We have a relocation plan where the large-scale miner will have to pay off this small-scale miner to find a new place to continue his livelihood. For the Class B, which is similar scale, is where the potential conflict lies. And so by law, we don't allow Class B, as we call it, to coexist with even exploration licenses. Because the tendency is that if you have Class B, and they have 5 years on their license, and then there's a discovery, and then the Class A license is given, there's a conflict. So we don't allow, when an exploration license is given, we don't allow Class B license on that exploration license. And if the Class B exists, when we give exploration license, we make sure that we exclude that portion from the exploration license so that we don't have those. But for the artisanal mining, Class C, of course, then they can coexist until such time. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I would like to thank Mr. Sangare for his contribution on the 2 first questions. Regarding the school and workshop, it is a project which is still there and it is still topical. It is found in the capacity building program for environmental development. That this is part of it, and the first is the capacity building and improvement of the performance of geological services of the member state. The second is the project to strengthen the mining governance and environmental management in extractive industry in the Litako-Gourmand area. And the last is the project to create workshop schools in member state to improve the ASM activities. And for this project, we are working in collaboration with UNIDO. And even last week, we had 2 experts from UNIDO who came from Vienna, and we had a working session with them. They are ready to support us in leveraging finances, funds to implement that portion. So it is still a topical issue. Thank you for the question that was asked to me, which is to know why is it that the ASM operators prefer to sell their gold in Mali. Well, it's simple. Whether in Mali or Guinea, we are not accusing you. You are not the buyers. Anyway, in fact, it has to do with the geography. When you look at this part of Senegal, we are sharing border with Mali, Guinea. And so, and it also has to do with the capacity that the buyers from other countries have. So they come to the Jura area to buy the gold with ASM operators. Maybe the Senegalese buyers can find it easier to get there. This is what motivated the setting up of these centers for the control. The purchase centers is still not working, so we need to find a way to bring buyers closer to the producers. Thank you.
On m'a demandé de donner la parole à un représentant.
I was asked to give the floor to the representative of the Ministry of Mine from DRC. So, sir, is of this workshop. My name is Joseph Ikoli Yomboyapek, Cabinet Director, Deputy Cabinet Director of the Ministry of Mine. We are a delegation of 3 experts, which I'm leading. 2 experts from the technical department, which is in charge of the organizing the ASM operators or stakeholders. And we noted positive aspects along the workshop, particularly the item relating to the regional approach. And I think that if each of our countries decide to be retracted on itself, it will be difficult, as there are some cross-border penetrations among the traders. So necessarily, we need to focus on a more regional approach, as it is done in the Great Lake region. And given the fact that there are some commonalities in the countries, for instance, we have the issue on the harmonization of taxes or tax system, which is very important. We have the fight against fraud and mineral resource smuggling at borders. So there is a need for regional cooperation. And we also noted that even though the LSM against ASM activities, we think that ASM activities is a necessary evil, because it's the source for employment of lots of people. And as an illustration, in DRC, the diamond sector is supported 100% by ASM actors, and we are the 4th diamond producer in the world. And so today, ASM play a major role in supporting some of the economic activities, just to show you the importance of that sector that needs to be managed very effectively, and we need to put in place formalization and legalization to make it stronger. You started the workshop with a day training with OECD, and we in DRC, and even in the Great Lake region, we integrated the OECD guidance in our legislation. And there is a ministerial order as far as our country is concerned. And today, we are complying with the guidance as a national standard for our country. and we are making some progress. It is true that along with that guidance, we have put in place traceability and certification systems, and we think that we are on the right track to get responsible supply chains. So in a nutshell, we need to rely on the partners, but we also need to rely on those who are around you. This is why we say that the regional approach is very important. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup. Il nous reste 11 minutes.
Now we are left with 11 minutes, 30 seconds. Yes.
Merci. Je vais le dire en anglais, pardon. I was really encouraged and happy with the presentation from Mr. Dorbor. Thank you very much. What you described at the end in terms of innovative thinking, but also partnership and participation, is basically the beginning of a human rights-based approach to formalization, which is what I was alluding to earlier. And so I really appreciated everything that you were sharing. I have a question for you, which is that when you showed your map of stakeholders, I didn't see the buyers there. And as we've just heard from some of the most recent interventions, and also the point I was trying to get across with the GIFT project, follow the money, is the buyers have the riskiest job financially in this, and they hold the purse strings and they hold the control, and they have a great influence over the sector and whether it can formalize. So I'm wondering why the buyers weren't identified, or if they were, and how you involved them in the process. Thank you.
Professor Yapo du Centre Ivoirien.
Professor Yapo from the Anti-Pollution Center. I just listened to the panelists, and I would like to come back on the answer of Mr. Koulibaly, who is the Director General of the mining sector in Côte d'Ivoire, said, what should we do with this newborn? We need to give him milk to drink because so that he can grow better. You know, the ASM sector grows faster than our meetings, which sometimes don't have impact on the field. When I take the eastern region of Côte d'Ivoire, like Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire, you have the right to say that it goes beyond the country scale. It should be regional. We have some water stream that cannot be exploited as potable water because as a result of the mining activities that are shared among the two countries, they affect the water stream in Côte d'Ivoire or Ghana. Last week we went to Obosso to close a station of Sodeci, which is the company for water, clean water distribution. We cannot use these water resources for reliable water supply. And today, when we talk about ASM activity, it is on the soil, but also in water stream, where those ASM operators put some system that will help them to move that water. And today, most of the water stream in Côte d'Ivoire are affected by this situation, or the rivers. Today, the last report of the UNEP on the quantity of mercury showed that the quantity has doubled in less than 10 years in the oceans, but we don't know, in our continental waters, we don't know what is happening there, and we know the danger that the net mercury residue can present to the population health. We've been working on this type of matrices, and we do some measurement. There are things that we see. So we wish that this baby, as my friend said, should be taken very seriously, so that our sub-regional therefore will move faster to apply solutions that will help rationalize that activity. It's a call that I'm launching to the Ministry of Environment. Thank you.
Once more, I want to thank the panelists. I want to address Minister Dobo and Dr. Mamadou Barry. Minister Dobo, I heard you talking about forming cooperatives in the ASM. I don't know my own experience about people in the ASM or miners in the ASM always think cooperatives are being organized wherein they get a sponsor from somewhere, or either the banks or some donor, to fund them. And in the absence of that, if they don't see that coming, there's a tendency that the cooperatives we end up being, we just scatter, and we will not have any more cooperative to work at. So I don't know what it's your own idea about forming a cooperative, or what education have you given them to get a perception of what exactly you want to achieve in the ASM. Dr. Barry, I enjoyed your presentations and a lot of nice expressions you are moving. The ASM is a multinational phenomenon which needs multinational approach, moving from the national platform to a regional approach. And that's a very good thing, a very good idea. But it needs the political will, it needs political backup. So I wonder what engine is in place to get the political will to get this regional approach, a multinational approach, to be a real dream. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Regarding the multilateral approach that we are planning to do on small-scale mining from a World Bank point of view, we have had internal discussions. Our management has concurred that we have to widen the approach, widen the tent. We have a number of initiatives going forward right now. Whether you look at the Minamata Convention, you look at the ICMM standards, you look at the Intergovernmental Forum standard, we have EITI, which has its own standard. So a number of initiatives that are going forward, each implemented by a separate organization. What we are proposing is to bring all those initiatives under one roof, collaborate and coordinate under a global ASM platform, ASM support platform, which will then percolate into a continental platform and then regional platform. So as we speak, this conference is going to be the subject of discussions when I return to Washington, but we are planning a similar event for East Africa. We have met with the ministers of East Africa. They're interested in this regional approach. We are also discussing with our Latin American counterparts. They also, I was in Colombia in December, so we discussed also a regional approach for Latin America there. So soon you will see this as the approach for assistance from the World Bank on support to small-scale mining. Thank you.
C'était pas une question, hein? Professor, il m'a semblé que c'était...
Well, Professor, I think that it was a contribution. Just to prove my idea of a baby that we need to grow fast. No, I think that we'll take questions if there are any.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I'm very sorry. I hope that the conversation will continue over coffee break now. As Monsieur Koulibaly has said, everything has been said. All the important issues have been touched on. Me personally, as moderator, I hope they will continue to be said. I hope that this spirit of constructive dialogue that we've seen the last 2 days will continue. And in that spirit, I would like to thank the panel. Thank you very much again, and the audience as well for your contributions. Thank you.